Isaac is a biblical patriarch and a Holy Forefather who's honored by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. He is the son of Abraham and Sarah, and the younger brother of Ishmael, husband to Rebekah, and the father of Jacob and Esau. According to Genesis, an angel prevented his sacrifice by his father Abraham to test his faith. After the tragic death of his mother Sarah, Abraham remarried to several Canaanite Arab women. Isaac's life took an upturn with his marriage to Rebekah. She dominated his life story. He first heard of her while he and his father Abraham were returning from Jerusalem after what became known as Aqidat Ishaq, or the binding of Isaac. A traveler from Mesopotamia recognized Abraham and told him about her birth. Rebekah was the daughter of Bethuel and the granddaughter of Nahor, Abraham's older brother who died in the fire in front of the temple. Her birth, however, was forgotten with the death of Sarah and the remarrying of Abraham. Isaac was neither a traveler nor a trader like his father Abraham. He stayed in the land of Canaan all his life. He had dreams also, but was never to fill the sandal of his father Abraham. When Isaac reached 40 years of age, his father decided to arrange a marriage for him from his relatives in Haran. Abraham asked his counselor Eliezer to travel back and find a wife for his son. Middle-aged artists in Europe later on glorified the arrival of Eliezer with a companion and 10 camels to water well at the outskirts of the town destination. Eliezer parked his camels beside the well of the town where girls came to draw water. Eliezer was tired from his 900 kilometers trip, wished kindness from the girls to help him draw water for him and his camels. He later told, he prayed that, "Let it be that the girl to whom I will say, 'Please tip over your jug so I can drink,' will say, 'Drink, and I will also water your camels.' That is the one you have designated for your servant, Isaac." Before he had finished prayers, there was Rebekah coming down with her water jug. The young girl was very fair to look upon. Eliezer requested help from the young girl to quench his thirst and that of his camels. Drawing water for a thirsty stranger is one level of kindness, but also his companion and all 10 camels is strenuous. A young Rebekah volunteered to bring water to him. Rebekah said, "Drink, stranger." She took down her jug into her hand and she gave him a drink. Then she said, "I will take out water so that your camels too have enough to drink." Rebekah quickly emptied her jar into a trough. Then she ran to the well to fill the jar again. She did that until all the camels had enough water. Eliezer was so happy that he took a gold ring and a bracelet and gave them to the young Rebekah. Eliezer asked the young girl, "Tell me, who is your father, and if there was room for him and his companion to stay in her father's house?" Rebekah replied, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Nahor." Eliezer asked her to meet her family to thank them. Rebekah led the men to her home. Her brother Laban spoke, inviting them to stay in his house. Rebekah was recognized as a second cousin of the future groom. When Eliezer finished telling his story, he brought gifts where he gave sweets to her brother and mother and gave Rebekah jewelry and clothing as a bridal gift from the land of Canaan. Rebekah's family agreed to send her away to marry her cousin Isaac, blessing her with a saying still common among Bedouins, that "May you be blessed with many children, and may your offspring inherit the gate of your enemies." Rebekah took the caravan back to the land of Canaan with Counselor Eliezer and his companion. She had her first glimpse of Isaac as he stood in the field. She covered her face with her veil. The act of veiling a bride was, and still, a wedding custom in which the groom unveiled the bride before the ceremony. Isaac took Rebekah into his mother's tent and married her. Rebekah followed the same tradition of Sarah, where a lamb lit the tent at night, making the dough for bread and brought happiness to the household. They lived happily and quietly in a tent by an oasis in the Negev desert for 20 years. Rebekah was barren and could not conceive a child from Isaac. The desert of the Negev in southern Canaan had an imbalance in climates, for it has a short winter and a long summer. When the winter months did not bring enough rain, droughts and famine may stretch in its valleys and oases. When the drought struck the Tiran, Father Abraham died at the age of 175. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near his wife Sarah. The statement that Abraham was gathered to his people indicated the gathering of his children at his death. Isaac, Ishmael, and his other children shared a mutual love for their old father. Ishmael then was 90 years old, and his 12 sons were grown and had become a strong and famous in their own rights. Isaac was less fortunate, for he had no children of his own. After the funeral of Abraham, Isaac was faced by the drought and the approaching of a famine in the Negev. Despite the claim that Isaac had inherited the great wealth of Abraham alone is not justified, for he was not able to survive the sweeping famine. Isaac inherited very little from his father Abraham. One inheritance from a rich Bedouin divided among 8 brothers and uncounted daughters did not leave that much to one son. Isaac felt the shortage of rain and decided to move to an area close to a town or city, for it had less harm. One day Isaac rose up to go south to Egypt, as his father Abraham had done. He had a dream that night to go to Gerar. Being a crossroad for commercial caravans, Gerar achieved prominence and progress than the surrounding area. The famine had little effect on the king and his city. Isaac rose up, rolled his tent and belongings, took his wife Rebekah, and went to Gerar. At the market of the coastal city, the people knew that he arrived from Bersheba and saw that Rebekah had a great appearance. Some asked who the lady with him was. Isaac replied that she was his sister. The king heard Isaac and offered to marry Rebekah. Isaac, with no hesitation, accepted. Abimelech took Rebekah and married her as his wife and offered his guest outer house to brother-in-law Isaac to dwell in it. Thus the house of Isaac was opposite to the house of the king in the same palace. Isaac remained there for 3 months in the palace. One day King Abimelech looked out the window and he saw Isaac sporting with Rebekah. The king calls Isaac and scolds him for sporting with his wife. Isaac confessed that Rebekah was in fact his wife, not his sister. The king questioned Isaac, "What is this? What have you done by pretending that your wife was your sister?" Isaac said to the king, "Because I was afraid lest I die on account of my wife. Therefore I said she was my sister." King Abimelech brought Isaac and Rebekah in front of his court of princes and dignitaries and gave them back to each other. The king commanded also that they should dress them in princely garments and make them ride through the streets of Gerar and proclaim them throughout the land, saying, This is the man and this is his wife, and they are safe and happy together. Isaac and Rebekah returned to live in the king's house. Isaac overstayed his stay in the king's palace. Abimelech said one day to Isaac, "Behold, a man like you with experience in farming, why not go cultivate some land near the valley of the city?" The king showed Isaac fields, vineyards, and valleys to be cultivated. Isaac moved on up the Gerar River valley and dwelt there. The king told him he could sow and reap and eat the fruits of the ground until the days of the famine should have passed by. And Isaac sowed in that land and dug wells of water and received the blessed produce and possessions of flocks, herds, and servants. Isaac located the same old wells that his father Abraham had dug up, which were neglected and deserted. He reconstructed the old wells and named them by the same names his father had called. The same old dispute over the use and ownership of these wells came up again. The men of Gerar argued with him about this. After living in Gerar for 1 year, while the drought was replaced by rain, Isaac decided to move back to Beersheba. One night he had a dream to go to Machpelah cave. He and Rebekah told the king of their plan, and they began their caravan with all their belongings. They stayed for a short time in the West Bank and then decided to return back to Beersheba. King Abimelech heard of their return, and he, his advisor Ahuzat, and vizier Philcul arrived to visit Isaac and his wife. Isaac celebrated their arrival, holding a feast for his guests. The three visitors enjoyed the food and the company of Isaac and Rebekah for that night. No doubt that Isaac and Rebekah expressed their wish to have children, although it was a little late. And the next morning, Isaac and Rebekah prepared breakfast to their royal guests. Isaac thanked his guests and made the traditional praising and oath of non aggression and peace in front of the king and the other visitors. Isaac prayed according to Genesis that his wife become pregnant. Sure enough, after that celebrated visit, Rebekah became pregnant after 20 years of being barren. Has God heard the prayer of Isaac to have Rebekah pregnant after the king's visit? Or were there no spiritual involvement in such an affair? The text in Genesis made the faithful to believe that God had actually caused the pregnancy. As it seems, Isaac returned to the west bank of the Jordan Valley, and he never came back to Beersheba or the Negev, or met King Abimelech and his men again. Nevertheless, Rebekah had a difficult pregnancy from the beginning with pain and felt, "I am torn apart with all this activity inside of me." Rebekah sought consultations and she was told that she had twin brothers in her womb. At the birth of her twins, the first child to emerge was ruddy and hairy. He was named Esau. And the second child to emerge was grasping the heel of the first child, and he was named Jacob. As the twins grew up, their differences were apparent. Esau liked the fields and enjoyed trapping birds and wild animals. Jacob liked herds and little domestic animals. One story in their youth became so popular and extremely emphasized when Esau returned tired and hungry from the field to be met with his younger brother Jacob with a dish of red lentil soup. Jacob offered his brother the meal if he trades him with his birthright. Esau did not think much of his little brother uttering for their father was becoming old and penniless. He sat down and had his soup without a thought about his birthright. Religious writers highlighted the incident as the base for a conflict between the two brothers. Isaac wished his children to learn at the house of Shem and Eber, but only Jacob accepted to go, and he learned and remained in their house for 32 years. And Esau, his brother, did not go, for he was not willing to go, and he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. Esau was continually hunting in the field to bring home what he could get. He came as far as the field of Seir, and there he saw a young girl from Canaan. Her name was Judith, from the Hittite tribe, a well-known tribe in Canaan. He returned to their land, hunting in the field for a year and 4 months. Esau, who was 40 years old, took Judith for a wife and brought her to Hebron, the land of his father's dwelling place at that time, and he dwelt next to them. He later married to Basma, daughter of Elon, the Hivites, a major tribe in the area also. Rebekah was a traditional mother-in-law, for she disliked both wives and her own son who married them. 10 years later, Jacob came back from his education and settled with his family. Isaac was 110 years old. Iraqi travelers passed by to tell Rebekah about the news of her brother Laban, who had two daughters, Leah and Rachel. The sister rejoiced for her brother wishing to have one of his daughters for Jacob. When Isaac became old, he gradually lost his sight. One day he told Esau if he brings home some birds or animal hunts, he would bestow his blessing on him as his firstborn son. Isaac favored Esau because he was committed to supporting the family and his parents. He sent Esau out to the field to trap and suggested the blessing after dinner. Rebekah overheard that exchange and realized that Jacob was more deserving of the blessing, for he is not married to those two Canaanite women. Jacob should marry from her family, for her brother has two young daughters. She told Jacob to slaughter a goat from the flock and bring it to her to cook it the way his father liked it. Jacob went in to his father, disguised as his brother. Isaac felt that the voice was not right, and he said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." Then he asked directly, "Are you my son Esau?" Jacob replied, "I am, father." Up until that time, Esau was assured that he was in his father's good grace. Realizing what his younger brother did, he was angered, for he had been betrayed by his little brother and his mother and lost the blessing of his birthright. Now Esau hated Jacob because of that blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Esau left to his sector and wives in anger. Once again, Rebekah stepped in. She spoke to Isaac about Jacob taking a wife from her family rather than a woman of the local population, knowing that he would desire for Jacob to go to her family to seek a wife. Isaac again called Jacob to him and told him that he had been blessed with a good wife from their kindred in Padan Aram. So Isaac instructed Jacob to go to his uncle Laban and take one of his daughters for his wife. Isaac then blessed Jacob and sent him on his way. Esau was confused that his father didn't know who he was, but it soon became clear to him and his father as well what had happened. Isaac was overwhelmed by the emotions of grief to anger and resentment to guilt. He trembled violently. Esau broke down and cried and was exceedingly bitter. He pleaded with his father to bless him. Also, Esau did receive a blessing from his father, but not the one he was looking for. Jacob and Esau were 75 years old at that time, and Isaac was 135. It must have been difficult to raise two rival sons from the same wife, as it was harder for Abraham to raise two sons from two wives. Canaan was a great nation then during the life of Isaac. The Bible refers to many kings and prosperous cities. Archaeology confirms such an advanced society in the land of Canaan and that its southern king spread his rule to Egypt during the Hyksos era. The deceiving of Isaac brought a quick end to his life. It must have been a family trauma where one son left the new country to go back to the family hometown and never come back during his parents' lifetime, while the other son was further apart with his two wives and children and became a stranger to his parents. Isaac was left alone in his tent in his old age, blind. Jacob was away from home for 22 years, as was Esau with his wives and in laws' families, while Rebekah, his wife, and her Canaanite maid Deborah wandered in the towns of the West Bank. One day, Isaac was told that Rebekah and her maid Deborah were found dead near a tree. No one knew why or how. The place became known as a tree of weepings, referring to the death of the two women. Some Canaanite neighbors recognized their bodies and made quick burial procedures to bury them at Machpelah Cave. Esau arrived last minute at the burial of his mother Rebekah. Isaac was not mentioned at the burial of his wife. Isaac stayed in his tent with no children, wife, or visitors. He must have been poor, blind, and penniless. Isaac died at Mamre at 180 years old and was buried in the cave of Machpelah, with no mention in religious books of the presence of his sons Esau or Jacob, nor anyone else who attended his burial. Most likely it was his neighbors, the Canaanites, who tended to his burial arrangements. Nevertheless, Isaac was remembered as a biblical patriarch and a holy forefather who is honored by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. He is the son of Abraham and Sarah and the younger brother of Ishmael, husband to Rebekah, and the father of Jacob and Esau. He was saved in Genesis by an angel from the sacrificing of his life from his father Abraham to test his faith.